Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liza Gentile, and I'm a proud JWU alumna and the Assistant Director of Alumni Relations here at Johnson & Wales University. Thank you for joining us for today's session. JWU alumni share the ins and outs of managing private clubs during COVID-19. We're excited to bring this program to you and look forward to this interesting discussion related to the experiences of a few of our alumni. Before we get started, I'd like to review a few housekeeping items. If you have questions for our panelists, please add them to the Q&A section. They will be answered at the conclusion of the program. The chat feature can be used to message other attendees. I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Matthew J. Samel, Ph.D. Matt is a proud graduate of Johnson & Wales University, receiving his bachelor's in hospitality management in 1992 and his MBA in 1998. He also holds a Ph.D. in organization and management with a specialization in human resources from Capella University. His focus of study is in organizational culture and person-organization fit. He has operational, training, and human resources work experience in a variety of industry segments, including hotels, independently and corporately owned restaurants, and private clubs. Matt currently teaches in the College of Hospitality Management's Center for Food and Beverage Management. He's an associate member of the Academy of Management, the Society for Human Resource Management, IFSC, and is a certified food safety manager instructor, FMP and CHE. He is also the current faculty advisor to the Student Club Management Association of America chapter, where he assists students in obtaining scholarships, internships, securing internships and employment, and attending the CMAA Student Education and World Conference on Club Management. Matt is the recent recipient of a grant from the Club Foundation that will support his research, which is organizational culture and person-organization fit, predictors of job satisfaction in private clubs. He has published research and reflections and has been interviewed about his experiences in multiple trade outlets. Thank you for bringing us this discussion, Matt. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Liza, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank Liza and her team for putting this all together, and I want to thank the managers that you're going to meet today. I often say club managers never say no. Your fellow alums, when asked to speak in classes, do tours of their facilities, donate money, and help students on a career path towards private club, have been very, very supportive for decades at this point. So I hope those of you who are alums listening learn something about private club industry, and we hope to have you come on board someday, I hope. So without further ado, I would like the panelists to come on, show yourself, and do a brief introduction. If you can give a brief career history, where you're currently working, what your job title is, and what your role is at the club. James, actually, we'll start with, let's start with Rachel.
Hello, I'm Rachel Williams. I currently work at Farmington Country Club, which is located in Bel Air, Maryland. My position title at the moment is a manager in training, and I've been overseeing our pool services and our snack bar location.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Betsy, you want to go next?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. Graduate, of course, at Johnson & Wales University, and had done some work in hotels, casinos, and mostly private restaurants, and had dabbled in clubs as a first job, and then have made clubs my career, if you will, after graduation. I'm currently at Congressional Country Club, which is located in Bethesda, Maryland, which is about 10 minutes outside of Washington, D.C. My current role is the Director of Team Member Engagement, otherwise known as Director of Human Resources, but we recognize HR is usually seen as the principal's office, and we work really hard to change that perception, change that stigma, and we do that even within our titles, but our titles remind us every day to live and breathe what we seek to be as a different team in human resources. My role, I work directly with the other division heads, with the division head structure at Congressional, supporting their initiatives, but really everything from the starting life cycle of a team member joining the organization to what we hope their departure is for great reasons, for advancement outside of the organization. And I have a great, strong team of HR professionals at Congressional. We're a larger organization. We've got a team of 4 in our department that have different sectors that they work on within what might be typical HR functions, and then however we can bring that to a more innovative place within the industry.
Great, Betsy. Thank you. And welcome. Why don't we go to James next?
Thanks, Matt. James Reisig. I'm an 08 graduate from the Providence campus in hospitality management. I'm currently the GM COO of the Tokeneke Club. We are a small beach club located in Fairfield County in Darien, Connecticut. I oversee the day-to-day operations, managing a budget of approximately $7 million a year with a staff of about 120 in season. My role goes from anything to HR, food and beverage service, to managing recreational activities in paddle and tennis, as well as managing a full beachfront operation.
Thank you, James. Welcome. Ryan, why don't you go next?
Thanks, Matt. Ryan Kenny, a graduate of Johnson & Wales in 2006. I've been in clubs my entire career. Started off in Fairfield County, then Westchester County, Philadelphia. And now my home is in Boston. I'm the general manager and COO of the Dedham Country and Polo Club. I manage top line revenues of $12 million. We have over 10 different departments at the club and 165 employees in peak season. We are a year-round property and one of the oldest in the country. I'm also the student chapter liaison of Johnson & Wales in conjunction with Club Managers Association of America. I've been in that role for 2 years, and we've seen many students along the way receive scholarships from the association, and placed many of the students in clubs across the country.
Thank you, Ryan. Welcome again. And last but not least, Joe Krenn. Joe?
Hi, I'm Joe Krenn. I'm the CEO and General Manager of Farmington Country Club in Charlottesville, Virginia. I'm a 2000 grad. I just realized I'm one of the old guys on there. I was actually there when it was a Griffin, then it turned into Wildcat. Most of my life's been in clubs. Nobody grows up saying they want to be a club manager. It goes with anything. When you do internships and you meet people in college, and when I was in college, I was a lifeguard at a country club, and the manager took me under his wing and told me that I should consider doing clubs for a living, and I got involved with the CMAA chapter there at Johnson & Wales, and the rest is history. I've been privileged to work at some great clubs, work in some PGA championship facilities, but then most recently, Farmington Country Club. I've been here about 8.5 years. We have 450 employees. We have overnight accommodations, golf, tennis, fitness, almost like a private resort to some degree. 2,500 members, revenues about $22 million, and currently working on a bunch of different capital projects that are up to about $22 million worth of capital projects at the moment. So got a lot going on a regular basis, and proud to be here.
Great. Thanks, Joe. Welcome, everybody. So the panelists are going to talk about a number of topics today. I think one of the things up front that is important, and I'm sure they're going to get to this in much more detail, the private club industry segment is not like any other hospitality segment. And because of its structure, and as you have met each member on the panel, they each represent a small to medium-sized business that's independent of each other. Although the parent organization, CMAA, is the association, they operate essentially as independent businesses. And the topics we're going to talk about today regarding COVID and employment and the industry segment future are unique. We all can relate to everything that's going on in the other industry segments. But I think this segment, more so than others, was prepared for something like this based on the structure, the governance, and the modeling of their education through their association. So the first topic we're going to address for each of the panelists is, how did your club manage through COVID? If you can speak to, describe what you did differently. Many clubs remained fully open, some adapted as we went along. And really, if you can focus also on how you focused on your membership and what their wants and needs were. So I think Ryan was going to take this first.
Absolutely. Thanks, Matt, for introing us. At Dedham, very unique circumstances up here in Boston. We were one of the first clubs to recognize the threat and the severity of the threat through the network of our members up here and between the hospital and network that Boston has. So we were the first club to shut down proactively in March. And it was just all hands on deck to try to understand exactly what our business model was going to look like over the next couple of weeks, and then in time, as we learned, a series of months. And the first thing that we wanted to do was, okay, this is nothing that any of us have any control over, and how do we keep the staff whole, and how do we make sure that all of our full-time employees are being taken care of, and because at the end of the day, in the club world, we're one big family over the series of time. So we decided to keep the staff on payroll for a month's time until we understood the CARES Act and what the benefits would look like there. And we carried everyone's insurance through the remainder of our shutdown. And in Massachusetts, we weren't able to open restaurant facilities other than takeout until June 19th. But in the meantime, we knew that we had a task on hand to deliver goods to our members and to make sure that they value their membership at the club. So the focus that we had and the mantra that we carried through the course of this year was to make Dedham the safe place, make Dedham the haven for our members to come out and dine and in a repetitive way and in a trusting way. So the first thing that we did, and if you go online to Club Managers Association of America, there's this month's magazine. We're featured in the second to last page or so of that periodical of what we did. And the team brainstormed. We developed a beer garden concept. We're able to add over 120 seats to the 100 that we already had outside, so we can consistently have multiples of hundreds outside dining on a nightly basis. And what we've seen from that is not only member satisfaction go up, but trust go up. All of our team members stayed on board with us throughout the summer, and our revenues are up. We're going to end the year in the black, which is just a phenomenal accomplishment. And we're one of the few clubs in Boston that are going out of the way to continue to have a series of member events, all within the COVID guidelines. And so as we look into the fall, we've had such success with the beer garden. What can we do? So we're having drive-in movie nights for families, trunk or treat events for the kids to have a safe place to go trick-or-treating. We're doing a 5K charity, which will fund the employee fund here at the club, which was instituted this year after COVID hit. We raised over $100,000 to give back to any staff that experienced hardship through COVID, and just to keep the momentum rolling. And there's always a silver lining when there's in time of crisis, and I think we ended up hitting it out of the park here.
Great, Ryan. Thank you. we spilled a little over the topic too, but that's great. I think the panel or the alumni getting a sense and the feel of how clubs reacted to this is essential. Joe, did you want to follow up with that? Joe, you're in Virginia, right? So
That's correct. We're in Virginia, and we tracked a lot of what some of the other places did, but about March 13th, our state went into basically not a shelter in place, but a version of that, and we realized that we had to shut down the building. And for us, that was the hardest thing because Thomas Jefferson put our first addition onto the building, so there's doors we have here that don't even have locks. So figuring out how do you shut down the building. We had a member staying overnight in our guest room, so you can't just kick them out. So going through a process of figuring out how do you shut down an operation, but oh yes, you can still have golf running and you can still have tennis running. So how do you shut down? How do you teach members what the word close means? But also, we're servant leaders at heart. We want to help people. We want to be there. So working through those processes of how do you shut down, but then have parts of your business still kind of up and running. And then also the more important factor was the staff. This was an emotional thing. Who's going to have their jobs? Who's not? So our membership they stepped up and we paid the staff for over 5 to 6 weeks during the initial part of COVID to figure out where we were going. So nobody had to worry about the paycheck. Once we started seeing that this was going to be something that was going to be here for a while, we did have to furlough about 150 employees at that time. The full furlough lasted probably 3 or 4 weeks. We started bringing a lot of people back. There are aspects of our operation, our kids' camps and children's place, we did not open yet. Our banquets business really isn't back at this point. We still have our local government put in a stricter ordinance than the state because the University of Virginia is right down the street. So everybody's worried about the students and what that's going to bring to the town. So we are in a phase right now, we're only allowed 50% indoor dining. No more groups of 50 or more. However, weddings and ceremonies and religious ceremonies are allowed to be up to 250 people. So COVID kind of stays away from religious ceremonies, I guess. So we're trying to figure all that out. And then still be that safe haven, as Ryan pointed out, a lot of the same stuff. How do you still connect with your members during this process? How do they still keep paying their dues? Because really what we live on is the dues dollars. So how do you create that value when members can't even come into your operation? So we did a lot of things, video, a lot of Facebook groups for our outdoor fitness. So we kept a lot of our staff on just trying to create that virtual connection. And then to-go program. Our to-go program has gone gangbusters. We've always had a strong program, but it's even stronger now. And we have a food truck. So we were able to create an experience outside for members to drive up and get food from our food truck. Again, just trying to find ways to create that connection.
That's great, Joe. Thank you. Betsy, you're located in Washington, D.C., in the D.C. corridor. And I know their restrictions were a little different too and changing.
Sure. Similar to Joe, our county has been tighter than our state, but there started to be partial close downs and operations in middle of March with a full stay-at-home order that took place at the end of March. And then what was interesting about Maryland and how their phasing system worked and unique to the club industry is that they actually opened up recreational golf and outdoor recreation before anything else. And so that created an interesting atmosphere for us. While we are part of the hospitality sector, the fact that there are so many different components at a country club that are not more traditional hospitality with rooms and food and beverage, it has really helped to positively insulate the club industry to be able to remain open and provide jobs. But stepping back, we usually have about 450 team members, close to 500 in season. Fortunately, the silver lining is that COVID hit prior to seasonal hires. So I think a lot of us were able to pause our hire counts or new hires coming on board in preparation for what was not going to be a summer like we ever knew before. A unique thing that Congressional did with their team members as we saw that this was going to go on, we did have to unfortunately furlough 100 individuals, but we created what we call an on-call status where we had about 144 team members go on call. And what this was designed to do was to create paycheck stability in a time when unemployment was only about 54% in the state. And then the CARES Act came out and people found out that they could make more money on unemployment than even what we were offering, which was 67% of their wages to stay at home. So we were trying to design a program that was better than unemployment, but not 100% pay, because that wasn't something the club could do long term, given that we were closed. What was really fascinating, and I think speaks to the culture of so many clubs, is we offered team members at no penalty to go ahead and self-select furlough so that they could collect more money on unemployment, maintain their benefits, maintain that they were originally an on-call status change, and only less than 5% of our team member population chose that option. Many team members were giving up upwards of $400 to $600 additional a week from what they were earning from the club that they could get on unemployment, because the connection, we heard a lot of feedback, the connection, I just want to still be connected to Congressional and earning a paycheck, earning something from Congressional. I can count on the club. I can count on that check coming in every 2 weeks, even if it's less than. I'm sure you all heard horror stories in some, well, maybe not every state, but Maryland absolutely had its challenges with the new unemployment and getting the CARES Act passed through. So that was really neat, a testament to what we felt our culture and our engagement levels at the club, of how team members really just wanted to stay connected throughout this entire process. To Joe's point too, on how do you close a club that the doors are really never locked, we do have a security booth at our club that usually serves as a liaison or a checkpoint to assist members coming through. But that was really fascinating. Members, we were on a stay-home shutdown order, and members were like, I just want to drive. Can I please just drive through the parking lot? I promise I won't get out of my car. I just want to drive around. I miss the club. So some, you know, certainly many challenges that came with a shutdown order and loss of revenue and changes that you needed to make with the team, but really some neat things that we saw from the team member engagement to the member engagement during that entire shutdown and change in operations.
Thank you, Betsy. That was great. Sorry, I had a little, I think I was off for a second. Who do we have? Oh, Rachel. So Rachel's very humble. Rachel's a recent grad, just graduated last year. She is also the outgoing president of the student chapter and did an internship at the club she currently works at. So she's brandy new. It's an interesting perspective, and, you know, throw in a global pandemic, and, you know, I'd like to hear what Rachel has to say of her first few months in the industry.
Thank you, Professor. But it was very interesting. I didn't join Maryland until the more like the middle of quarantine and their shelter in place. So I wasn't there for the beginning, and I didn't quite help them through the beginning, but I did hear a lot from them. And I got to hear how they were able to transfer over to takeouts and to still make sure their members got everything they wanted out of their membership, even though we were during some difficult times. But it was interesting to see going back how they were preparing to start to open up. And it was just different things that all started to take place. The to-go still happened for a little bit for the members who were still wary of it before anything opened up. We still had curbside pickup. So it was interesting to see that take place. And it was very interesting to see, as Betsy said, golf recreationals were open before dining was. So it's interesting to see how we applied that, still had a lot of employees to be able to come back on payroll to get them off that unemployment if they were. And it was interesting to see how they transitioned that to having golf, but still being safe and still being courteous of what is going on at the moment. So it was a very challenging moment, change, but it was nice to see how the club transformed over and how the members took it as well. Members are very cautious, but very open to helping out employees as well. They didn't want to see certain of their staff go. So along with the ones that were furloughed, they did have themselves a CARES Act in their own bill, in their own club, where members donated to this fund and helped out any employees who were not able to go on furlough and who needed that extra care during some hard times that quarantine did provide to them.
Thank you, Rachel. And you don't have to call me professor anymore. You can call me Matt. That's fine.
I will try to. I'll try to.
And James, you're in the Connecticut area, so that's a little different too.
Sure. So I'm in Fairfield County, Connecticut, which for those that don't know, borders New York City. So as the pandemic really kind of kicked off, we got hit infinitely hard for all of our members to traditionally commute to the city for work and then have then brought it back to Fairfield County. So we were kind of at the epicenter in the beginning. Luckily, we've moved through that and have had a significant decrease in cases now, and things have kind of calmed down for us. We're not in any of the red states, thankfully. But for us, it was a challenge. I mean, we're a seasonal club. Traditionally, we're only open 5.5 to 6 months a year, and this hit right as we were about to open. So we had started ramping up. We had done all of our hiring for the season. We were scheduled to open about a week after the pandemic really started to take place in early March with our larger events. We do a lot of charitable events. We had to cancel all of that. Within about a month's time, we lost about $700,000 worth of private event business, kind of just not to be rescheduled. Hopefully, obviously, we'll come back in 21, and we've now since worked to be able to reschedule that. But at that point, people didn't know when or how long this would really endure for. So our business model kind of changed from opening up on a seasonal club in a 5-month basis to being virtual for the first month, and we didn't know for how long thereafter. We moved a lot to online platforms and doing cooking classes online and doing athletics online and tennis instruction from our professional staff online. While it was somewhat engaging, the members certainly missed the club. One benefit, luckily for us, being beachside as a beach club, we had a lot of outdoor space and expansive space that we could have used for food and beverage. With all of the orders in place from both the state and local governments, we were operating at 50% capacity outdoors pretty quickly there. With 6 feet social distancing. So we were able to accommodate, over 300 people in doing that with a space that we had available to us. So that was certainly a windfall for us, whereas some of the other clubs in town didn't have the expansive outdoor space that we did. For us, COVID, while we thought we perhaps would lose members due to financial hardships and things of that, we really looked at it in 2 ways of 2 communities, one being our staff and the other being our members, and kind of how do we basically support both communities through this. One was that we did have a series of furloughs. However, we established an employee fund to support those employees. Through that, we were able to bring all of our staff back to 100% levels in just over 4 weeks. So the furloughs were certainly temporary. On top of that, for our members, we kind of wanted to recreate what their home base was. That's where everybody was told to shelter in place at home, and that's where you're most safe. We wanted to really duplicate that at the club, and so we kind of had a lot of open forums and town hall meetings with the membership to see what really played into that, what made them feel safe, and then tried to use those ideas to best accommodate them accordingly. In doing so, we've seen a huge rise in revenues from our members. Our outdoor dining is just through the roof. Indoor dining still remains a little bit slow, but year over year, we are ahead of years past, and we had a strong 2019. And even stronger 2020 through the pandemic with those changes in place. And our members have said over and over, and we've continued to survey them and have those focus points and groups with them to make sure that we are hitting all of those points. And luckily, we've been able to continue to do so. And our season was not as impacted as I'm sure some of you all were with some of the larger country clubs and different offerings in that manner.
Professor Matt, if I may jump in here, as you know, I always will. I think, James and Betsy and all of them, even Ryan and Rachel kicked in, is the key to all of this was all of our clubs were facing and are facing major losses. I mean, we were looking at a $2 to possibly $2.5 million loss before that was even any kind of membership loss and things like that. But finding a way to just kind of create a community and keep members engaged was the key to all of our successes, and it still continues to be. And our members are supporting us, and they're seeing us as like that safe haven. So working through that, our brand is about quality. Our brand is about being seen as leaders or the best of the best. So how do you maintain that through the pandemic is what we've been focused on. And I think you're starting to see, as an industry, members are choosing to go to their clubs before they're going to a public facility because they don't know anybody there. They know Ray, the server, they know Ryan, the manager, or whatever it may be, and they know what your standards and procedures are, and they know what we've been communicating with them, so they know what we're doing. So finding ways to make them feel safe. Even there's a club in Atlanta I know that had to make an announcement that there was 80-some cases at their club. They have people lining up to join that club right now because they saw, hey, this is what happened, this is what they did, They still had golf, they still had tennis, they still had dining, and it's a safe haven. And I think we all are trying to work through that next process is how do you manage through this, keep your brand safe, communicate what you're doing for your staff and your members, but also this is an opportunity for clubs to really shine, and this is what we do.
That's great, Joe. Actually, that leads us into our next next topic. But I do want to point out, I think, you know, it's obvious to us who in the club industry, obviously you're operators, and I studied that, and I taught, and I'm involved in the student chapter. You mentioned member like it's customer, and those that don't know the industry don't know that that's different. Now you have a membership, it's its own bubble. They're the people coming back and forth, so there isn't a lot of transient guests. So it allows, you know, for the operational aspects of engaged service over a long period of time. But with COVID, it's really a different, you know, it's a different approach. I'm not saying it's controllable, but you know who's there. You know who's there when they're there. And I think this sense of community you spoke is the perfect lead-in to the next topic. So you've had an opportunity to deal with this for a while. Now we are moving forward. Many of you are going to be less active in terms of your season, but more indoors. You don't have the outside to the outside part of your facilities to utilize. So moving forward, what's going to be the model, say for staffing, to be able, and for staffing for employees, and to be able to offer your membership enough activity that they're going to use the club and still feel they have value? And how do you think that's going to, you know, Joe brought up brand. How do you think it's going to affect the brand? And then if you can speak a little bit to maybe the services that you provided before that you couldn't provide now, but the services that really resonated with your membership because you worked it out, you figured it out, you surveyed it, and it was a home run. So if we can, who wants to take that on first? Ryan.
Thanks, Matt. So I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but you know, as we look into the fall, we're a busy club. Even though we're in New England, we're a year-round facility. So we had to put together a new, you know, a revised business model for the fall, winter, and spring. So we'll start transitioning from golf and outdoor tennis and pool to platform tennis, shooting, indoor tennis, and then when snow falls, we'll start looking into cross-country skiing, ice skating, and sledding activities. So, you know, the question as far as how do we manage staff and what and keep them whole, the way we're designed is that our full-time staff, they're with us year-round, and we start. You know, as the kids go back to college, we start shedding staff, you know, and it's really just a food and beverage operation that scales back a touch. We'll have 4 dining rooms open, about 25 seats in each dining room, all on reservations, and that's a mass mandate. There is no restrictions in Massachusetts as far as how many people can dine indoors. For a la carte, for banquets, it's a different can of worms. So we average about 85 covers a night in regular season, and we expect to be able to accommodate more than that this year. Communication is key. We inform the members every month or so about what we're doing. A look back of how we've handled situations. A look forward about how we intend to handle situations indoors. We've installed ionization units in the air ducts. We've spaced out all the tables, and we show the members, this is what we're doing. This is your safe place. We've increased our programming. We do hot food meals every night to go. We also do meal kits for pickup. As far as events are concerned, you know, our stand-up brunches are going to look different. Our Thanksgiving dinner is going to look different, and more of those will be items that we send home with families. So maybe Santa Claus brings the food to cars, says hi to the kids, says, I'm sorry for this year, but next year we'll be back in full force. I mentioned we're doing a drive-in movie night on our driving range. It's a great way to bring the community together. So it's really just thinking outside the box, designating a lot of our interns and junior managers to assignment. So when snow falls, we know that Eric is going to be on property to manage the sledding competitions. If we do shut down, which we may for January and February, which is our slow months of the year, we have speaker series lined up for our members, and we join forces with other clubs so we can bring in higher profile speakers to both memberships. So it's really just communication, outside the box thinking, and building a community and culture to just get us through this hard time, to get a better result at the end.
That's great, Ryan. James, did you want to add to that?
Sure. So I think one thing that you had mentioned kind of leading into that and that Ryan touched upon is kind of filling the gaps for our membership communities. So for me, we're a seasonal club. We traditionally would shut down October 31st for our season anyway, but to continue the engagement there and to let people know that we're still supporting of them because we're taking away somewhat of their safe haven on property. We've moved to virtual programming, obviously, and Ryan had mentioned the speaker series. We have something set up virtually for that, an instructional series. But I think going back to the beginning of the pandemic, what clubs were really good at is kind of identifying something that was missing in the members. So we all kind of remember there was a toilet paper shortage, right, in the beginning of this whole thing. I've noticed a lot of clubs and us ourselves, we were able to leverage our relationships with vendors to get some items that others weren't able to get in the marketplace and provide a quote unquote marketplace for our members where they could arrive to the club, replace an order for bulk items such as, sanitizing solutions and toilet paper, but also food and beverage and meal kits. So I think for us, it's kind of being able to wear those multiple hats and switch from true operations on premise to what we can do off premise to fill the voids of our members' lives and really build that sense of community. And that's kind of what we're looking to transition to it ourselves now and say, what can we do in the winter months when we were traditionally shut down anyway to still be able to support our members through this, potentially a second wave or hopefully not, but even so, give them some sort of value when they're not on premise as well.
And I know Betsy in our pre-meeting had a lot to say about this particular topic. So Betsy.
Sure. I think we made a conscious decision as an organization early on to make hard decisions, but make them once. And so we made some decisions about staffing cuts and rehiring and freezing rehiring to be as incredibly lean, knowing that we have seasonality and that our bulk season is through the summer, and then in the fall and the winter we start to close down. And we know that banquet operations, we could see that that was not going to pick up with the number of with the restrictions in the state and in the county. And so what we've been very forward in our communication with our team. We did have a round of layoffs, but our decision on, we actually did not make any conscious decisions on bringing individuals back. What we did is we essentially posted all open positions as the club was phasing open to our entire team internally. And it said, if you're interested in coming back to work, let us know, here are the qualifications. So we had individuals coming back in positions that they've never previously worked before. So that's opened up incredible cross-training opportunities across the club, which will be very positive for us from years to come with the different cross-training. But essentially, team members came back as they felt comfortable. It did leave us at a point when we were back to a full operation. While we hoped that everything would be back in operation, we got to a point in June, July, where we were at full operation, that some individuals had not come back to work yet. And so we did have to part ways with some, but what those tough decisions did is it put us in a situation where we are such a lean staffing model right now that as we go into the winter months, we know exactly how many hours we're going to have available for the team from what they currently work to what they will have available. And we've been forward in our communication to say, you know, minus another major catastrophe or something, you know, out of our control taking place, there will not be any additional layoffs at Congressional, and it just means that we use the word we, but this is a time not to say we. I'm in a position where I don't have to worry about how many hours I have on the schedule. For individuals that are hourly, what we said is that as a team, we will work to find hours, but everyone will take a shared sacrifice, and that everyone's hours will be reduced, specifically in food and beverage, where we're going to have the most amount of impact for operations. And so we've tried to stick to our culture in a way that we are all working through this together. We feel stronger. We feel like we're going to come out of this crisis stronger through how we've communicated and how we've asked the team to all look out for one another and help one another. So we are going to still hit with even all the unique ideas that operations has been putting together to transform different outlets and venues, very similar to the other clubs on this panel. But we're still going to have our challenges where we're going to hunker down as a team together to get through this winter, and where we also hope that there won't be a spike in cases again. But we're consciously working through that as a group with cross training and trying to be as lean as possible to share what's available with those that are on the team and remain on the team.
Unmute. Thank you, Betsy. Joe, would you like to add to that?
No, I think they all covered it pretty good. I think we're all in the same boat, is just trying to find ways to work through regulations, trying to find ways to meet member services, and also doing it in a safe way where our staff feels safe even being here, and because they have to go home to their families as well. So we're focused also on where are we going, what's the information out there, and also how we can kind of keep doing that. And I think the key to all this is just being transparent and communicating.
Matt, if I can add one thing, you talked about brand management earlier, kind of as we were segueing, and I think clubs have a misnomer about when people think about maybe who belongs to a club. There's a misnomer about what it means to work at a club and the clientele, and or this perception that clubs have endless amounts of money. We are all small to medium businesses, and we run very tight operational budgets, and we do not have endless amounts of money. And so unfortunately, sometimes the club industry gets this bad employer rep because of what maybe the outside world thinks of what a club is and what a club makeup is. And so we are conscious of that. I think we talked about this as a panel, that we're always conscious of that there is some angle sometimes of what individuals' perception of clubs are. And so we, I believe, as a club industry, are ever more increasingly conscious of our brand. And what I mean by that, especially with COVID, is that there are certainly ways to interpret some of the phasings that have opened in our local area about how to host large events. And you can interpret the guidance or the requirements or the recommendations, you can interpret them in certain ways. And as a club, we have made a very conscious effort to take the most conservative approach to interpreting those recommendations, because Congressional Country Club Congressional Country Club on the front page of the Washington Post, having violated state or county requirements, is a bigger headline than a local restaurant. And there are certainly other brands that you could put in that same category where it gets a bigger headline, it gets a bigger story. And so brand management, not only for how we treat our team, but how we operate our clubs and how our members feel about coming, I think is important for any business, but it's something that the club industry is very sensitive to because of an unfortunate general negative stigma that can be out there about what it means to work at a club.
Betsy, that was a really good point. And I always tell people, a clarification is our members have a lot of money. The club doesn't have a lot of money.
That's a great point. So as time is dwindling away here, I want to move on to our last topic. And I think we're going to start with Rachel. So I want to shift the conversation to employment. You all graduated at different times. You were all at different roles and responsibility at the club now. You've all worked for very different kinds of clubs. We didn't have really time to talk about the different types of clubs. But what's employment going to look like moving forward? what's your advice for students and alums, especially alums who may have been, let's say, in a food and beverage or culinary role, transitioning from hotel to restaurant into club? What are you thinking in terms of hiring moving forward? So let's start with Rachel on that one.
I believe hiring moving forward is going to be the same that the clubs have been going through. They all have been looking for hospitality students in almost all majors around. It's just, it might be more tailored differently. It might be at a different position or a different time, but that same process that they have gone through will always be going through. And if you're transitioning from a different industry that's not private clubs and you're from food and beverage, we're all alike. We just do it a different way and we service a different members. From your maybe customers, ours are members. We're more loyal to them too. But we're all in the same pathway at the end of the day to create this value for them. So we're going to be, I would say, to just go out there, make the connection, start knocking on doors and seeing who answers them. It may not be the position you're looking for, it may not be the title you were going for, but it might be worked into that and it might create something else that they didn't know they needed, but that club sees the value from it. It might start transitioning to it as well. And don't be afraid to do it as well, because at first you might feel weary or it's a different environment to walk into, but it's all a family-like environment. All clubs and memberships are all want to have one big point at the end of the day to both amend to. So I feel like if you just go out there and look, the clubs are going to answer your doors. The clubs answered my doors. A lot of alum that I graduated with, you know, going into hotels and restaurants, they did not end up on the right position. Their jobs were like, they had a position in September, but no longer have one now. So they were reaching out to me and saying, I remember you talking about private clubs. What is that? And you're still at a job? I'm like, yeah, it's a different type of structure, but we still were able to make through the quarantine. And that's why they're looking to this industry more, trying to figure out how they were able to maintain it and how I can get into it. So just knock on that door.
That was an awesome answer, Rachel. Just awesome. James, you want to?
Yeah, sure.
That?
So I think the big thing to touch on for anybody that's considering clubs as a employment opportunity is that first, we have a lot of diversity within the clubs. There's positions available in food and beverage, in potentially overnight rooms at clubs like Joe has. There's city clubs and athletic clubs. So you can be in athletics, you can be in accounting, you can be in membership, marketing, technology. We offer a vast variety of opportunities there. I think the next thing you really need to be cognizant of is that we preach community, right? And it's not just for our members, but it's for our staff. Every one of the panelists up here mentioned that at some point we all addressed that need with our staff to make sure that A, they were safe, B, they were supported, and C, that we had employment opportunities or at least financial ability to support them through this. Unfortunately, for a lot of other business models in the hospitality industry, such as hotels and restaurants, they weren't able to do so well. They may have wanted to. They didn't have the funds or they didn't have the support from their clientele as we do with members. So you are supported in this industry. You are part of a larger family and community. And for that, I think that goes a long way for those individuals that, you know, when crisis does hit, you know that you're going to be supported and you are going to be cared for as part of that community, an active part of your family and team. Whereas unfortunately in other parts of the industry, that may not be the case. And I think the last part is just investment. As much as you invest in finding the right opportunity for yourself and job fit, the club is investing in you. So a lot of times, especially with these organizations, the clubs go out of their way to make sure that we provide cross-training, we provide the proper training for you, but we're also invested in you and your development. And such associations like CMAA provide endless opportunities for you to grow. So if you are in a position where you may be in food and beverage now, but you desire to be a general manager or a financial controller or marketing and membership, a lot of times clubs will be able to support you. And then through the greater association of CMAA, you can develop and learn the information that you need and the skill set to be able to grow within the club industry and move from club to club and have unique opportunities provided to you within this given industry. Whereas in hotels, unfortunately, sometimes you may have management opportunities and trainings, but you're staying within a brand. You have an opportunity to go to thousands of different brands throughout the country with that training kind of at your fingertips and the support of your club behind you.
Great, James. Also, a unique aspect of the CMAA, continued education and scholarship to pay for that for their managers, topic for another time. But Betsy, if you could, since you are in the team engagement business, Can you speak to if an alum was they're changing careers to come to private clubs and they want to work on the resume and highlight skill sets? What are club managers looking for from somebody out of one of the other industry segments? What should they be highlighting?
Sure. Mine is a real true desire to provide customer service and, you know, beyond that of what you may provide in other sectors of the hospitality industry, because our customers don't leave. They are back weekend after weekend. So that is probably more or less one of the only unique factors, I believe, from the rest of the hospitality industry or even communications IT, is that our customers are repeat customers. Every customer is a repeat customer. So outside of that, which creates the most unique opportunity, there's really not much difference, I would say, other than this crisis has created an opportunity for clubs to shine in a way that those of us that are on this panel that have worked for clubs for many, many years, why we stay in clubs, why we love clubs, and why we've talked about why we love clubs. And you know, unfortunately, to round that out with a story, there's a gentleman that works for us here at the club, and he came from private industry or from large restaurant groups, sommelier, working in New York City, worked for some of the top restaurants in New York City, and we by chance got him to come work for us. We knew it was a neat opportunity for us to have someone of this caliber join the organization. Unfortunately, about a year or two later, he felt like he wasn't able to do some of the programming with wine that he could do in different settings. We worked hard to give and let him see how there are opportunities in clubs to do that. It may be different than what you would experience in a downtown New York, you know, in a Manhattan, New York restaurant, but that there are those opportunities. We worked diligently to like re-recruit him. Fortunately, he stayed, but it was a trying time. And then fast forward 1 year later and COVID hit. And he's back, he's at work at the club, and he has come forward to say, man, am I grateful that I stuck it out and I heeded the advice that clubs do have opportunities, endless opportunities. It's what you make of it. And he's like, I cannot express how genuinely happy I am that I did not make the decision to go back to New York City, because Betsy, I can't tell you how many phone calls I'm getting from other individuals in the industry that are saying, how do I get into a club? How do I get my foot in the door in a club? I understand now what you've been talking about. It was a humbling moment for us for how hard we worked to continuously recruit him and that he chose to stay, but it was also a sad moment just to think about how many people, especially in the hospitality industry, are without jobs right now, and just humbling that our members are so incredible, and just what clubs can offer, from stability to different sectors, and how we are staying strong throughout this. So humbling, but I wouldn't say there's much to put differently on your resume. We've been trying to recruit from just about any industry where we look at talents and abilities and skill sets, any one of these clubs, and we are interested, and we just want to continue to share how awesome we think clubs are. And we hope that you've learned more about club industry today and give us a chance to think about joining the industry. We promise you probably won't leave after you've joined, and you've kind of come to the bright side.
Hey, Matt, I'd just like to say one thing here that I think that the audience should know. And, you know, there's 3,500 plus clubs in this country, but most of the clubs in this country are single entities. We are a cottage industry. We work alongside and underneath the umbrella of CMAA. And everyone on this call as panelists, we're all peers with one another, and we work with one another anytime that we have any challenges. And I say that because since we are cottage and we do focus just on one property for the most part of the time, if you are working in the hotel sector or corporate restaurant sector, you almost have a leg up in a lot of regard to a lot of other individuals within the club industry, because you have corporate experience and a level of HR training that just doesn't come with the territory for most clubs. On the call, we have two clubs that are very large. It's some of the largest in the entire country, and then but most of the clubs in the country are medium sized that don't have that structure. So whereas Betsy and Joe have an HR department, a communications department, a membership department, a club of my size, and my club is on a relatively large scale. We're $12 million top line. I don't have HR. I don't have membership. I don't have communications. And I would guess that James does not either. And a lot of those responsibilities fall under us. So by being able to recruit someone that has experience in that world is a huge heads up. And I know for one, in both my last jobs, I've recruited from the steakhouse sector of the hospitality business for our clubhouse managers, and it's a very easy transition and a better quality of life.
Thanks for adding that, Ryan. Liz is giving me the red light. We have, or Liza, I'm sorry. Liza's giving me the red light. We have nearly 40 participants, so we want to roll into the Q&A. Joe, we're going to come right to you for the first couple of questions. So I want to personally thank all of you for taking time out of your day. And, you know, you're the core group, and I know we've been working on this for a long time to get an opportunity to create club awareness within our own organization of JWU. So I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to the value you're going to add to these questions that we're having. So at this point, I want to give it back to, hand it back off to Liza. Thank you again for putting this together, Liza. Great job.
Thanks, Matt. So if any of our attendees have any questions, please type them into the Q&A and I will ask them of the panelists. So the first question we have, are there specific activities or policies that your club has implemented during the pandemic that you'll continue to uphold even after it's over? Joe, we'll go to you for this one.
I will think it's just the heightened sense of cleanliness, the heightened sense of communicating all of our policies and procedures. I think that's going to continue on through this. You know, the social distancing piece will make us all aware of it, but really finding out and communicating with our members, I think, is going to be the big piece. You know, golf is golf, tennis is tennis. You know, overnight rooms, hotels are doing the same thing. We're not cleaning guest rooms at night. After each night of stay. Stuff like that, I think levels of service will come back. But I just think this sense of community and showing our level of care will stay with us going forward. And then more the virtual side of it. Clubs are usually lagging, as it was mentioned earlier, what Ryan just mentioned. There's not a lot of support staff in some areas for clubs, and clubs had to find out a way to get more virtual, to become more technologically savvy. And I think that definitely is going to carry forward with us going forward.
Thanks. Another question for the group, is CMAA membership required in order to look for director positions in private clubs?
Absolutely not. Most clubs will support your efforts and pay for your education and participation in CMAA.
Great, thank you. And this one is really for any of you. What were some challenges, both predicted and unforeseen, that you faced when you began indoor banquets? Are any of you back to that point?
So in Boston, Massachusetts, banquets are limited to 10 people per 1,000 square feet indoors and a maximum of 50 people outdoors. And that won't be lifted until we're into phase 4. Which is when a vaccine will be distributed.
So a big challenge for us here in Connecticut is that you can't have any walk-up bar service and you can't have any buffets or stations. So changing the business model of walking around and having individualized plates that you're having a waiter hand to somebody for hors d'oeuvres and having to take everything through cocktail service makes it a little bit more challenging in the staffing model and being able to execute those events regardless of size. So that was something that was challenging for us.
I would say our biggest challenge with banquets is, again, we were limited in size and scope, but really it comes down to the perception of having the event right now is what we're managing through. You know, legally we're allowed to do it. We're contractually obligated to do it, but there's still some members who feel we should not be having these events because we're bringing strangers into our bubble, right? So working through the banquet events and really finding out ways to highlight or even visually show how we're keeping the social distance, how we have signs up, staff in masks, really trying to go above and beyond to show the level of care. But I think that's our biggest challenge right now is while you're allowed to do it, certain people are very scared right now. Certain people think we should have all the doors open and this is all, you know, this is all for naught. So finding that level, that in the middle, that everybody's comfortable with it and our staff actually working the event, I think is our biggest challenge. It's going to be our biggest challenge till we get through and there's a vaccine and all these other pieces.
Rachel, do you have anything to add to that?
Oh, I wanted to add on to that. It's definitely a challenge doing with social distancing as well. We've had a couple of banquet events where it's only half capacity, so we can only have under 100 people available there. So it's dealing with having guests keep their mask on for food service, and if they were to approach the bar, we are plexiglass safe. So it's dealing with that, having to just control guests to make sure they're following these orders, and when they're not doing it, even with warning, directing staff to be very safe and to keep the mask on and to not walk into the group of 12 of them that are standing there to approach the group from the outside. It's going to be a different environment and definitely a different procedure going forward.
Okay. We have another question. Betsy, I'm going to direct this one to you. What are some specific skills you're looking for someone coming right out of college?
And I guess it depends on the position, but, you know, a service attitude, hardworking attitude, attention to detail, how you know, we really bring in a few buckets, a drive to want to be your very best every day, a drive to work hard to achieve what it is that success looks like to you and the organization, how you get along well with others, play well with others, and how you're continuously seeking to learn. So I think, you know, coming out of college, it would depend on the position, and really it's more about characteristics, attitude, and abilities necessarily than skill sets, because I think there's an expectation there that skills you can learn. So it's really about fine-tuning your approach, your self-awareness, how you work with others, and how you accept feedback to continuously learn. That's going to set up for a longer success in any position at an organization, rather than specific hard skills.
I echo Betsy's comments there. And as the student chapter liaison, I work with a lot of students as they segue into the workforce. And you know, it's a great accomplishment to graduate school, and it's a great accomplishment to get your first job. And I would just encourage you, if you are graduating, to just give it time. You know, when you get your first job, listen to your managers and your mentors, and just do what's asked of you, and just know that, you know, after some hard work, dividends will be rewarded to you, and you will see a rise in ranks very quickly. And I think that's an attribute that happens in clubs more so than other sectors, where you can rise the ranks quickly. And there's a case, actually almost every single one of us on this call is a case to that. We're all relatively young, and we've been very successful within this industry.
Great, thank you all. That's all of the questions we have from our alumni. So I will just wrap it up. And Matt, thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists for such an informative and interesting discussion. I'd also like to recognize Ryan Kenny, class of 2007, and the Dedham Country and Polo Club. Last month, Ryan and his club made a generous donation to Johnson & Wales, which covered the membership dues for 10 students joining the Club Managers Association of America's student chapter. Thank you so much, Ryan. This is a wonderful example of how alumni generosity has a direct and immediate impact on the students following in your footsteps. But you don't have to make a large donation to make a difference. When we each contribute what we can, our gifts add up and our collective impact is significant. That's the power of the JWU Alumni Network. We know times are still tough for many of our alumni, especially those in the hospitality industry. Our students and their families are also facing many of the same challenges. If you're in a position to give back today, please make a gift of any amount directly to the College of Hospitality Management in Providence. We've shared a link in the chat window for your convenience. We're in this together and we'll get through this together. That is the Wildcat way. Thank you in advance for your generosity. We sincerely hope that you've enjoyed today's session. JWU alumni share the ins and outs of managing a private club during COVID-19, part of the JWU Connects family of programming. Through JWU Connects, alumni can engage in informative and interesting discussions related to professional development topics, as well as opportunities for networking and connection with fellow classmates and faculty. For the full listing of upcoming events, please visit the events calendar at alumni.jwu.edu. We appreciate your attendance and wish you a wonderful rest of your day.